Hey everyone, Crystal here. I am back from an amazing weekend. I had a chance to get away and run the Land Between the Lakes 60K trail race and just had such an amazing time. The weather was wonderful, the trail conditions were perfect, and I had a chance to meet up with a bunch of listeners, which is always such a scream. And then I just love Steve Durbin races. And so I just wanted to remind everyone that if you're interested in running a Durbin race, the website is durbinracemanagement.com. And he has everything from 10Ks up to 100 miles and everything from roads to trails. So be sure to check that out. And also don't forget, if you use discount code HRP15, you'll save 15%. Hope to see you out there.
Welcome to the Heartland Running Podcast. Join Crystal, Andy, and Chandler as they explore all things running related in the Heartland and beyond.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Heartland Running Podcast. I'm Crystal.
I'm Andy. And I'm Chandler.
Woo, and we are all three together tonight. This is exciting. It's been a little while, so
Hey.
You know it's going to be a party. And we have been warned ahead of time that Chandler had lost his voice a little earlier today, so we're hoping it sticks around for the rest of the evening. But
he's a shy fellow, so he may run off. He'll be fine.
Yeah, or he'll switch to sign language. So that works well in a podcast too. So I'm excited. I think this is going to be an interesting conversation tonight. Recently, I came across a headline, and it was online. I didn't read the full article, but I thought it was kind of interesting. And it was something to the effect of how big business has ruined the marathon. And I thought it was kind of an interesting debate. And it really does seem like more and more races, not just the marathon, but there's like the rock and roll marathon and some other ones that have kind of really made themselves a franchise. There's the Ragnar relays, but then there's the shorter distances. I know hot chocolate 15K is a big thing in this area of the country. I don't know. Do you guys have that out where you are in Missouri? Have you heard of that? The hot chocolate 15K?
No, we don't have that.
Don't
here.
have that one. Color Run though.
Color Run.
That's what I was just going to say. That's another kind of big one. And so what's interesting, it almost seems to be this trend of, making it a franchise, and then it comes with more and more amenities and goodies, and of course the higher price tags that come along with that.
Yes.
So what's kind of interesting is our guest tonight, her name's Katie Cordova, and she's the owner and founder of, I love this name, by the way, too, Brokemans Running Company. And she's kind of going against this trend, and she is trying to put on affordable and community-oriented races of all distances. So I'm excited to talk to her tonight. So welcome, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So before we kind of get into Brokemans Running and all of that, I want to start off learning a little bit about you. Kind of what got you started running. And my understanding, I've gone back and actually read some of your old blog posts and learned a bit about you. So I know that running has played a very, very important role in your life. And so I was hoping you could kind of share that with us.
It has. And as you mentioned, I wrote a blog post about it and put it on my website last November to kind of give everybody a little deeper look about why I run and why this business is so important to me. But I came into running as an adult. I was always that kid. I tried cross country once in like 8th grade, and I was that person who was behind everybody else getting like the 16-minute miles. I was awful. I would have anxiety attacks before running. I just thought it was the worst thing that you could put someone through. And so I didn't do it for a long time. But I came into physical fitness as I got older. I was in the military, in the Army. And when I got out of the Army, I did find a love for physical fitness. And somehow I started to channel that into running. I think it's what made most sense to me. I had a dad who was a runner, and I kind of looked up to that. I thought it was kind of cool. And so I just started running. And over the years, talking like in my 20s, over 10 years ago, I just kind of found a way into it. And I noticed that it really helped my mental state of life and just going through challenges that I was going through. And I just dove right into it. And I got really into the goal setting of running, signing up for races and the planning the training plans and the 13-mile races and all that kind of stuff. And I just really fell into it hard when I was in my 20s and loved it.
That's great. Yeah. So many of us have discovered it as adults, and same thing. I mean, just that mental aspect of it is awesome, which I've also noticed really plays a lot into the races and stuff that you offer. You all on the website, you always talk about both the physical and mental side of it, which I think is really cool.
Yes, the physical side of it. I mean, I'm a middle packer. I push myself to PRs that I'm happy with, but I'm not winning any medals. And I'm not losing a lot of weight or anything that really is physically nice about running for some people. But the mental aspects of it is just beyond anything else. And I think a lot of people are in my situation where you can't focus on the physical because you're not going to see a lot of results. You have to focus on the mental part of what running can do for you.
I'm right there with you. I'm a really awesome, mediocre, middle of the packer, and I rock it. So, and I'm proud of it. Tell us a little bit about what you did in the military.
So I did the worst job I could ever think of to do in my life, which was finance. I joined the military and I said, what'll give me the biggest bonus? Back when they used to give bonuses for joining the military. And they said, oh, you can join finance. I said, sign me up. And they gave me a bonus. And so that's what I did when I was in the military. I was just in the reserve. So it wasn't my full-time job outside of the tour I did overseas, but it bored me out of my mind when I was there. So it wasn't my dream job.
There's a reason why they give the big bonuses for stuff, right?
Because it was apparently really boring. Yeah.
That's how they get people to do stuff.
So you had your stint in the military, and then what did you do after the military whenever you got out?
So when I got out of the military, it was interesting. I'm one of those people that didn't have a lot of direction in my life, and that's why I joined the military in the first place, because I didn't do college. I actually dropped out of high school and finished my high school diploma just on kind of online school type of situation. And so I didn't really have any passion or focus. So when I got out of the military, I kind of bounced around for a while. I worked at like Buffalo Wild Wings. It was great. And I just didn't really have a goal. I got married and then I got divorced, and that's when I started running. And then through that, that's when I started doing physical fitness related jobs. I really liked it. So I started teaching yoga. I started organizing things. So as I was teaching yoga and I taught TRX and I taught spinning and I was in that gym environment, I started organizing little group runs or little yoga classes out of the park. And I really fell in love with organizing people. I had no idea how to do it. I just thought it was really interesting to get people together for the same cause.
I think what's really cool is, you mentioned before about the mental aspect of it. And it sounds like, whenever you got out of the military, you kind of floated around, you did some things and maybe you had some struggles, and everyone has struggles in their lives. And, that's part of the reason why I started running. But do you think that mental aspect of it, that release that you get from running, do you think that was something that was really a draw to you?
It was something I wanted other people to experience. So It was definitely a draw to me personally. That whole, if I had a really bad day, then I didn't know how else to work it out except for go for a run. That's how I solved my problems. And, by myself with my headphones on the pavement. And I really found a lot of value in that. After coming out of the military, after going through a divorce, I was 21 at the time. I found so much value to finding a healthy, productive way a young person could solve their problems on their own, without going to counseling or any type of therapy. Not that I was against that. I just liked the idea that I could do it on my own. And so when I started falling in love with organizing people in different groups and settings and trying to push them to do things in life that they might not normally think about doing, that's when I started to really want to share the value of what running can do for you mentally to people who are having challenges in their own life.
Yeah, so it sounds like you really want to help other people and you want to get them excited about life and get them active and stuff like that. So was that point right there whenever you really developed the idea for Brokemans running and putting that organization together so that way you could launch that idea and then get people out there? Was that what really brought you into that?
So in late in 2012, early 2013, I was in this really good just running groove. I wanted to sign up for races. I mentioned before, I love the goal setting aspect of the racing environment. Like, I get that there can be anyone, the road is free. Anybody can run. You can totally run and not sign up for races and be fine. But I found a lot of value to setting a goal, training for the race and achieving that goal. I thought that was great. But as you mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, it was too expensive for me. I was very, very broke at the time. And even like a $25, $35 race was something I couldn't do. And so it was really frustrating. I was like, there has to be an answer, right? Like, there has to be another way. I want to sign up for the half marathon and I want to train for it, but I just can't pay the $65 they're charging me. What do I do? So I was like, I'm going to organize my own race. And so the first Brokeman, it was the Brokemans half marathon. And the first one I ever did it was completely free. It was just one of those organizing people things. We met at a bar in Columbus and I planned a route and I went out and kind of put some arrows down and put a water stop down and told people where to go. And I, organized a deal where they get half off beer if they did the race. And I made medals out of cardboard and sticker. And it was a lot of fun. We had like 12 people show up. So it wasn't huge. Actually, somehow there was an alternate location listed on this Columbus Underground website. And so I think half the people went there. Mistakes were learned, mistakes were made, lessons learned. And it was just really fun. Like, I just loved it. And so what I decided is that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in the running industry, but I didn't know what that meant at the time. I didn't know whether that means I could organize races, or do I need to go work at a running store, or do I need to go do this? Like, what did that mean? So that was in May, and I searched and searched and searched, and for like anything, like type in the word jobs in running in Google. And I was like, I have to find something, but I was still working at the gym. I was trying to find a career for myself. I found this passion. I just didn't know how to, make it happen. So in August of 2013, I just had my second baby. So he was 6 months old. I somehow got on Craigslist and found a post for this company that was hiring a race director. It was a regional race director. And they flew me out to Las Vegas to do this training. And I landed the job. And it was like this huge thing to me. It was really dramatic because I just had my baby and it was like a new thing. And it was a really big deal to me. It was the worst company I've ever worked for in my entire life. It was miserable.
Oh.
And so we got hired in September. Again, it was regional. So he hired like 25 people all over the United States, flew us all out to Vegas. It was really exciting. Like, everybody was really energized. It was such a fun team environment to work in. Sent us all back home. We had 6 weeks to plan. I had 4 races to do in one weekend. Me being like, I want this job. This is exciting. I was like, sure. So I did whatever I could. I mean, they were brand new races. We weren't taking over anything. So I had to create the race from scratch. Did 4 races in Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, and Lexington, Kentucky. And it was interesting. And then the weekend of the race, the owner of the company pulled all of our money and said, well, we can't financially support you for this race. So good luck. And, at that point I was like, well, it's not your name on the race. It's my name on the race. Like, you can't just not show up. And so I did the best I could. Surprisingly, got a phone call, or not surprisingly, got a phone call the next week, and he let almost everybody go because it takes a little longer than 6 weeks to put on a race, and it takes a little more money than nothing to put on a race.
Oh, what distances were these, by the way?
So this was called the Veterans Day. What was it called? It was called the Veterans Day something, National Veterans Day Run or something like that. And there was like a 5K and 11 mile because it was on Veterans Weekend. It was like November 11th. So there was this whole play up in the 11 concept of the races. So they were a shorter distance with a little bit of a longer distance in it. So while it was the worst experience, one of the worst experiences I've had as a job, I'm grateful for it because it really ignited my passion in wanting to do better. with that, with the race, and it was like a crash course in race directing. I was able to figure out how to make the phone calls and do the courses very quickly. And so that kind of kickstarted my whole thing. And then, so then I searched. I was like, there has to be another job out there. Like, I want to do this so badly. There's no jobs in race directing. There are a lot of races out there, but one person works them. They have a small contract team, lots of volunteers. There's no job. There's no career in race directing, and everywhere that was hiring needed 10 years of experience. So, I realized that I was never going to get a job in my passion and what I wanted to do. And I mean, me and my husband even talked about, like, I would move across the country if we could find something, and it just didn't exist. So I decided that I was going to give this whole Brokemans running thing. I was Brokemans half marathon. That was the company, a shot. He was working, my husband was working full time. And so it was kind of a good time to just try it out. And so that's, in short, that's what, really started my first official race. And then I put on a official Brokemans half marathon in October of 2014. And we charged $10. It was just a half marathon only. And that was the first one we did.
Did you find anything that you learned during that, like, terrible job experience you described there? Did it kind of show you what not to do as a race director company kind of thing? Just like, maybe not pull out the money, weeks before the race or something. I mean, besides just that.
That's a big no-no. Yes. I think the biggest thing that it taught me as with doing this job, as well as lots of articles that I read about the running world, is to not overpromise. Don't ever tell your runners something you can't guarantee that you can deliver, because event planning, which is basically what race directors are with a running focused event, is extremely challenging, because there's, I always describe it as there's 100 balls in the air and you're just hoping they're all going to drop on race day and everything's going to work out, And so when people are over promising, if you've read the articles about this guy had to close or this guy had to cancel this race or, things like that, it's because there's a very good chance it's because they over promised and they couldn't own up to their promises, because, they're not all their balls dropped the way they needed them to. So I think that was the biggest one, negative lesson that I learned. But I think the most positive lesson that I learned is that people really care about running, kind of no matter what the end result is, as long as you have the best of intentions and you present it well and you present it honestly. People really care and they want to see the race succeed.
I'm really interested to kind of talk a little bit more about your philosophy on racing, because we've got two ends of the spectrum. We've got the spectrum that we discussed earlier, that, the rock and roll races, the Ragnar relays, these expensive races that draw a lot of people, that, you get the shirt, the hat, the headband, you get the bag full of all this good stuff, but you spend a lot of money to, get into that race. And then we've got the races that you're discussing that, you have more of a pure racing experience or a pure running experience. And I think it's interesting to kind of talk about the two. And I don't have a desire to discourage either. I think both of them are fine for the running community and encouraging people to get out and get active. I kind of see two different type of people that tend to go towards each race. I think that, there's some crossover between the two of them. And, I see myself looking at the people who do the big races, the big corporate races, as maybe people who are maybe casual runners and, looking for a big experience. It's like, hey, I'm going to train for my first half marathon and I want it to be this big, huge deal. I'm going to sign up for this big race so I can get all this cool stuff and it's going to be fun. There's going to be music and it's going to be crazy. But I'm thinking about, the smaller races and the races like you put on. Do you feel like there's a difference between the type of people who sign up for your races as compared to these large corporate races?
I think that there was in the beginning. I do think there is, but I think there was more so in the beginning when I was like this brand new thing that was $10. And honestly, people just kind of didn't know what to expect. But people were more of the, let's see what happens, right? It's $10. I'm going to run anyways today. Mm-hmm. I like to think in the beginning, and I still do, but I always like to think of myself as a road race company with a trail race vibe. And, you know, if you run the trail races, they're so much more casual. There's so much more of that community aspect. You know, you kind of know the people that are there. People don't have such high expectations. They're okay if, you know, this didn't go right, or if they need to alter this, or, you know, they're okay with challenges. They're okay with, you know, not as such a pristine setup, you know, one less porta potty. I might have to go pee in the woods, you know, kind of thing. With the people that sign up for the road, the big corporate races, you know, there's a lot more expectation. You know, you've paid a lot of money and you expect results a certain way. Now, I value both. And so what I've tried to do is find my place in that. You know, I'm, you know, while yes, I'm trying to be the alternative for people, I'm just trying to be an alternative. I'm not competing with the Cap City Half Marathon that's here. I'm not those people's target race, you know? And so I don't consider them a competition because they have people that will sign up for that race, the hot chocolate, you know, they are good to go. You know, so I'm just trying to give people a secondary option. You know, this isn't the only option. So one thing that I have said to people over the years is we are a great race if you've never ran a race before. Maybe you want to try it, but you're nervous about the crowds. It's amazing how many people are nervous about the crowd size at a major marathon or the hot chocolate 15K. And they're intimidating. It takes you at the hot chocolate. I'm not sure. I've never ran it, but I hear it takes you over 30 minutes to cross the start line if you're in, you know, in the back. And, you know, and that's extremely intimidating for people. They don't know how to deal with that. You know, they're nervous. And so they don't want to. So I'm, you know, so I say, okay, why don't you show up to my race, run the racing environment, see what you think of, you know, the time, you know, you go on a training run, you can kind of walk out the door whenever you want to. At a race, you have to be there and you have to be there on time and you have to go to the bathroom first and you have to pick up your bib, and it can be nerve-wracking for people. So it's a great stepping stone. We get a lot of people that try a new distance for the first time because they're nervous about doing that distance because it's a new distance, and then they're nervous about putting themselves in a bigger environment. And so they do ours first, and that makes them comfortable to move on to these bigger races. There is so much value. I've ran 5 major cities. I've ran Cleveland twice and Columbus 3 times. I live in Columbus, and I actually do contract work for the Columbus Marathon. It's a wonderful event to run because the crowd support at the Columbus Marathon is like none other. It's, you know, there's just strangers on the street cheering you on and like making you feel like you can do it. And it's just, and then there's the whole tie into the Nationwide Children's Hospital. It's just a beautiful event. It's well executed. It's special. It makes you just feel really special doing it. For me personally, when I tried to, I was really trying to qualify for Boston, which I didn't do. You know, one year I knew the Columbus would be such a perfect course for that because I knew how much support would be on the course. You know, so there's things about it that are just really great. But one, that's not achievable for everybody. You know, it is expensive. It's between $85 and $125 for the race. 2, if that's achievable for you, what can you only run it one time? You know, it's not fun to think about, oh, there's one race a year I can do. I've met so many people that are trying to do a race in every state, a race every month, a half marathon every month. I have a friend who did 30 before 30. So he's doing 30 half marathons. I was able to give him a little leg up by providing so many affordable races that people that are doing challenges like that to challenge themselves, like my races because they're affordable. They can run 6 for the same price they can run 1 somewhere else. And so I am different, but I think I'm just an alternative. I don't think I'm trying to challenge what's there. I guess I am, but I don't think I'm trying to say what anybody else is doing is wrong. I just want to provide another option for people.
So in comparison to these bigger races, and you say that you're the affordable alternative to these big races, what do you do that keeps it so affordable? And, what can a runner expect if they sign up for one of your races?
I will say that I would not be able to put on my business model without my husband. And that was we both work full time for the company. He is everything you see in the races. He's the t-shirts, the medals, the signs, everything that's visual. He is a graphic designing, a bachelor's in graphic designing, and had a lot of similar struggles that I had where he couldn't find a decent paying job. And so once I created this and I was like, hey, I think this is working. Why don't we tie in a little more of what you produce and, try to grow this? So he makes everything. I had somebody reach out to me the other day. She's putting on an event in Cleveland and she wanted to know about our woodles that we have, which is our alternative to metals. We provide woodles. And and I said to her, I was like, I don't really have a good answer for you because we make this in-house. Like, as we started this podcast, I was sitting at my kitchen table tying woodles as we were talking, because we do everything ourselves. I had to move because my children came home and they're very loud. But we do everything ourselves, everything. And so that, we make the t-shirts ourselves. We set up the course ourselves. Everything is just done in-house. And so that's one of the major things that allow us to be so affordable. And then so that's kind of what kickstarted the ability to be affordable. But then over the years, we've been around for about 4 years. I've really done a lot of trial and error to see what people want from the race and what we can provide for them that is within our budget. So, there's a lot of races out there. People have said to me over and over again, I was really impressed about what I got for what I paid, which, I really like that comment because we want to provide not a cheap race. I have my mentor is the race director for the Columbus Marathon, and he's the guy I called and emailed constantly when I first started out. And he told me once, you should rename your company from Brokemans to Cheap Feet or something like that, because you're alienating women when you use the word man. And that's when I actually merged. I know it sounds trivial, but that's when I merged the Broke and the Mans into Brokemans. And then it kind of came its own little word, because I'm a female. I'm not trying to alienate women by any means. But the name Cheap Feet, we're already charging a cheap price. I didn't want people to think we were just this really casual, the fat ass running industry of people just organizing together and running. That's what they call themselves. Organizing together and just running to run, and they'll make themselves medals and things like that. There is that out there, but we didn't want to be that. We wanted to be as professional as I could possibly afford to be, and so we used to not provide timing for our races because I was like, I couldn't afford a timing company, but 2, I didn't know if there was value in that for what I was providing people. Well, over the years, I found out people really, really wanted to have timing. So I did a lot of research. I contacted my mentor. I said, what do I do? And I ended up finding a really great, affordable timer that does a much more manual process. So you're not getting that super professional chip timing, but they're professional results. And then some of the races we just record by ourselves. I don't provide timing. All of our trail races that we do this year, I hand record in. We have a beer mile coming up next St. Patrick's Day. We're putting on 3 this year. And I literally stand there with a whiteboard and dry erase marker and mark everybody's time down as they come. And we let people know that ahead of time. So we've cut out a lot of stuff. One thing we cut out is shirts. All of our shirts are for purchase. at most of our races. And so people pay an extra fee for our shirts. And I've asked people for years, do you want a free shirt or do you want to pay for a shirt and you get charged a little bit less? And the consensus seems to be that, people would rather have the option. And we stuck with that and it's worked out really well for us. So those are things that we do. I think the only other big, huge thing we do is we pick and choose where we do our courses. All of our courses are done either on bike paths, private property, or trail races, like metro parks and stuff like that, that are affordable.
Well, I know one of the other things that you do that I'm interested to see how, when you made the switch, how it's working, because I kind of feel your company is also good if it's good for beginners, but I also think it's good if somebody wants to know what it's like to run an ultra without putting in all those miles. It very much has that same kind of vibe, like you talked about the trail vibe. And I know one of the things is that your races are cupless races.
Yes. And we really do try to push that.
And so kind of talk about how, because I mean, that's very common in a lot of trail races and ultra races. It's, it's just assumed that you're going to carry your own. But on the road races, that's very, unheard of. What was it like making that switch, and how's it going, and how does it work?
It's going well now, 4 years later. There's a couple of reasons that I really decided to do this and stick with it. One, we're not a professional course. People aren't trying to necessarily qualify or PR. I mean, they do a lot, but it's not something where you need to run so fast you need somebody to hand you a cup. We have that more low-key vibe to us. We are working on certifying a lot of our courses this year because we feel like that's something that will entice people to show up and try to get more runners. And so we're going to be certifying. I will be personally certifying a bunch of courses this year, including the Mother's Day race that we're doing that you mentioned that you ran last year. We're working on certifying that course as well. So for the cut-free concept, one thing was the first event that we ever put on, the one that was the $10 run in October, not the free one that was the year before. That was just fun. I don't consider that our first event. The actual one, the one I got my first permit for, we set up a water station at the turnaround point. My husband and I did, poured cups, had some extra water, had some extra stuff on the side just in case, like I've seen in a lot of races. And when we got back at the end of the day, we didn't have any volunteers out there because it was just us. When we got back to, half the cups had blown over. There was like trash on the side and it was just kind of a mess. And I was like, this isn't fun. There's probably leaves in people's cups by that point. I was like, this isn't good. This isn't what I want to present to people. So how can we do this? And so that's when I had already known about a couple of companies that did cut-free races. Most of them were in national parks and things like that, where they really have a no-waste policy. And I liked it a lot. And I was like, well, let's give this a shot. And so we did that at our next race. I went out and bought like 25 of those 5-gallon igloo coolers from Lowe's and a bunch of tables. And I found a company that would provide us with cups. And I said, okay, we're going to be cut free. And I made a video and I put it on the line. Well, people just kept showing up to our races. I'm like, oh, I didn't know anything about this. It's amazing how many runners sign up without really researching what kind of race they're signing up for and, read the fine print. And there were so many people who were like, I didn't know. I got a lot of negative feedback because people didn't know it was cut free, despite as much as I possibly thought we could communicate that we were cut free. So, and that was hard, so that's when I was like, well, is this good? Is this bad? We don't want people to go out on the course and be dehydrated. That's a big no-no. And so I called my mentor and I was like, how do I deal with this? And we ended up putting a box on our registration page that you have to check that says in very big letters, I understand that this race is cup free and there will not be any cups on the course and I need to provide my own hydration. And so at that point, I said, this is all I can do. But at that point, we were a couple years into it and we were getting the reputation of being cup free. And so that was helpful. But putting this big giant box up as well as a couple other little things I did, like a video on the website about what that meant to be cup free and things like that. I think it helped. Now going into it, people just know. It's rare that I get any questions about it at all. And because of our low-key vibe, you know, it's really not a big deal. I do get questions sometimes. I've had people ask me, hey, can I pay an extra $5 for you to put my bottle out on the, you know, the table at the course? And I say, no, I'm sorry. You can do that, but I can't guarantee your bottle's going to be there at the end of the day. You know, and so, you know, that's at that point, that's all I can do. This, you know, it's all been made known and I just have to move on.
I like that.
And then the other reason that we went cup free, and this is a big one, the sustainability thing, we really wanted to be low waste. We wanted to have the ability for people to access water. We wanted to, you know, so the low waste thing was a huge reason why we went cup free. But another big thing is because we're such a small company that we are hit or miss on volunteers. We've had races that we've had 10, 15 people show up, which is a lot for us, and that's good. And we've had races where we've had nobody sign up to volunteer. And it's just really hard for us to put out water stops full of cups if we don't have anybody man it. Like it wouldn't make sense and it wouldn't be a functional water stop. And so us providing cup-free racing is one way that we can make sure that we're providing somebody with a standard of our racing environment, even if we don't get anybody to show up to man them. So that was a big determining factor in it as well.
That's great. I love how you know, as you're learning and growing through all that, it makes a lot of sense. And before we go too much further in, I want to go back and we were talking about the shirts. And that's another cool thing. It's on your website. And I know that's another way that you kind of help offset some of the costs is you have some really cool merchandise. Yeah. And one of the things that you have some really awesome hoodies. So for people who,
thank you.
So for people who want to go check them out, your website, is Brokemans.com. So go and check that out. And there is a, place where you can order the shirts. And what I like is the shirts aren't specific to any races or anything like that. There's some really fun, just general running related hoodies and cool shirts. And so one of the things that I wanted to do, we've talked about it before. We have our private Facebook group and there's a lot of benefits from being in there. And of course, we like supporting really cool local companies and we love our listeners. So one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to buy one of our listeners a hoodie or a long sleeve of their choice. And I will also say that Katie was generous enough to offer to donate a shirt, but I really do want to go ahead and pay for it, and we really do want to support it. So if you don't win, I'm hoping others will go out and support them as well, especially if you're not in, you know, the Cincinnati, Columbus, Dayton area, that you can still go and, you know, help support a really cool company. But so I'm going to draw the name live here. Let's see.
There's drum roll, please.
There's all the in there.
The hoodies are amazing.
While she's drawing, if you want to go and see more of the cool stuff that they've got on their website, that is www.brokemans.com. That is BROKEMANS.com. And go check it out. They've got some really cool stuff. So I think Crystal is just about to draw the name.
And I got it. Oh, this is one of our newer members in our Facebook group, and he actually happens to be local, so we need to get him out to run one of these races as well. It is Scott Patrick, who happens to live in my neighborhood as well. And so he's so funny, he couldn't make up his mind. So he first chose the Run Like You Give a Damn hoodie, and then he later saw further down, he saw another one, which he thinks is better. And I love this one too. And the slogan on this one says, "Run to undo the damage." I love that. So
do you know the whole quote?
So no, share that with us.
So this is actually the quote that I designed the business model off of. And so it's always been something I've really enjoyed. And so we put it on a couple of shirts, but it says, run to undo the damage done to body and, or it says, I'm sorry. We run to undo the damage done to body and spirit. We run to find some part of ourselves yet undiscovered. and it's by John Bingham. And it's just a quote that I read once and just dove into. And so I really like that one.
I love that. Well, congratulations, Scott. So get in touch with me and we'll pick out what size, color, all that stuff, and we'll get that ordered for you. So awesome. And it was fun reading through and seeing all the ones that people selected. The other one that I thought was really interesting, and I think it has a good story behind it, was, I may get this wrong now. Was it Take Two?
So it's called Chapter 2? Chapter 2.
I know it was something. I knew there was a 2 in there.
And people liked that?
Yeah, we had, yeah. Yeah, we had, there was all different ones that people were really liking, because that's what we did. We had them go through and say which one that they would like to win. So
the Chapter 2 shirt is me and my husband wanted to develop a line of just running, like really emotional, inspiring, fun running stuff. So everything you kind of see was part of the Chapter 2 line. We decided to just keep it Brokemans apparel, and not kind of create a subgroup called Chapter 2. But that one was the relentless pursuit of intent. And so, that kind of mission for that company was to just encourage people to just pursue their goals relentlessly, just to not ever give up.
That's awesome.
And I like the design.
Yeah, it is. It's actually a really cool design, which it's hard to describe on here, so you have to go on the website and look at it. Mm-hmm. So what I like about some of your races, you have some really unique races. Talk about some of the different ones that you have that might be a little bit different than just the half marathons and some of that. And what's some of the inspiration behind some of your different ones?
So we have what this year I decided to group them into different categories. We've really expanded a lot this year. I'm really trying to, again, find my place in what the running and world wants me to be. And so we've expanded a lot to see what works. And so we've grouped our races into 3 categories. We have fast, flat, and paved. We have trail runs, and we have fun runs. So the fast, flat, and paved runs are all going to be your more professional timing, kind of a larger setup. We, more water stations, flat courses. We're going to work on certifying all those courses over the course of this year. So they're kind of our more professional races. Trail runs, Columbus really lacks in a good trail running community because we don't have any trails here. And so I really wanted to provide what I could in Columbus instead of reaching out. We do put on races in all around Ohio, but I really wanted, I'm from Columbus and I love Columbus, and I really wanted to target the trail running community we could find here. So we came up with 5 trail runs that we have this year, and we have a 6th one at the end of the year. On opt-out. It's on Black Friday. We call it our opt-outside trail run, and that one takes place in Southeast Ohio. It's on Black Friday, and you can run anywhere between 6.2 and 55 miles at that event. It's a blast. I love it. It's my favorite event. I have so many, but it's one of my favorite events of the year just because it's such a fun vibe and a beautiful course, and it's great. But then we have our fun runs. And so some of these happened really mostly out of me wanting to put on this event. Maybe I heard a song and I was like, we should do a race for the song. So we have a summer solstice run and a winter solstice run. And these take place at a brewery in Columbus. We start and finish at a brewery downtown. It's very downtown located in a little town called Franklinton that's on the other side of the river from downtown. And the summer solstice run, basically we just start really late on the summer solstice. And we run, I kind of put out like a 4-mile course. It's very casual. We don't have timing. The course has signs, but it's not really, it's a fun run. And the vibe of the event is you show up late, and by the time you're running, it's dark and you're downtown and you've watched the sunset. And it's just the course itself is gorgeous. Last year I was, I like to I get on my bike and I bike around the course while the race is happening just to make sure everybody's still running okay. And I was finishing out that run last year, and it was just like there were like 1 million fireflies out, and it was downtown. It's just a really beautiful, time of day and during the summer. And then everybody goes back to the bar and drinks beer. And so it's just, it's kind of an enjoyable thing. Same bar during the winter solstice, we have a run called Run Your Pants Off. And this is something that I wanted to put on for a couple years. And I finally found a way for it to work 2 years ago. But I set up it's roughly a mile in the same downtown area. And it's a mile around kind of our core of downtown around the river. And so it's on the winter solstice. So the downtown lights up in Christmas lights. We put volunteers all around this 1 mile course. And what you do is you load up a ton of clothing and then you start running. And then as you go to all these donation stations that we have volunteers set out, you take off your clothing and you donate it in the bin. And then you get to run as many times around this course as you want, an hour, and then take off as much clothing as you want to, as long as you abide by legal Ohio laws of clothing. And then you go back to the bar and you drink. And then we have a raffle. And so we get a lot of really great companies to donate products. Every time you donate a piece of clothing, you get a raffle ticket. And we do this really big raffle at the end of it. And all the clothing I then take and I donate to, we donated to a place called Joseph's Closet this year. And it was just, again, it's just a blast. It's a run, but it has a really fun vibe to it. And then we also have, this year, we're putting on 3 beer miles. Have you ever done a beer mile?
I have.
Anybody?
No.
I have not. No.
Okay.
No. And Chandler better not have. He's the young one of the group. So.
Okay. Well, we do check everybody's ID when they show up, and everybody's required to have a DD or an Uber. Take an Uber home.
Darn.
That is in our rules. But you basically we have a 1/4 mile course set up, and we have like last year we had Land Grant Brewing come out and provide beer, and you you chug a beer, run a 1/4 mile, and then do that 3 more times. So you're chugging 4 beers in 1 mile, and it was and trying to keep it all down. And you're trying to do it in a time, it's for time. So you're trying to hurry up. It's so much fun to be on my side of it. I've done it twice, but I really enjoy watching people do it because it's just hilarious. It's funny to watch these people just challenge themselves. Last year we did one on Memorial Day, and it was my first official one that I've put on, where we got a permit and everything. And so I really wanted it to be a legitimate race, And as I'm sitting there kind of signing people in, all these cops start showing up, and I'm like, why are all these cops here? Like, I know I dotted all my I's and crossed my T's. Why are all these cops? Well, it turns out one of our participants was a police officer. And so all of these police had come up to just take pictures and video of him doing this race so that they could share it with everybody. And it was really funny. And so it's just a really fun, again, kind of community oriented, fun event.
Now, wait, who has to clean up after that? Because we know not everybody keeps that down.
So I advise everybody to puke in the middle. I just pray for rain and hope that I can, thankfully the place that we do it at this, it's this gym that it has like a abandoned area on one side and then gym on the other side. And it's just this very large kind of industrial parking lot. There's only a very small corner of the parking lot that's actually used. And we're very lucky to have this big chunk of private property that's not really used to use it, to do the event at. So thankfully, nobody's really worried if the parking lot looks disgusting at the end of the day. So that works out really well. That I don't have to bring my power washer out and clean up. I did think about that, but no one's asked me to yet.
Yeah. Well, kind of wrapping up our conversation for this podcast. One thing that I'm really excited about listening to you talk about the races that you're putting on is that I really feel like in my community and probably in communities all across the country that races are a little bit oversaturated. I think there's a lot of them out there. I think there's a lot of them that are not very good. And then there's a lot of them that are good. And I really like hearing the creativity and the originality that you're putting into your races. I think that's something that draws people. I think that's something that creates excitement, because you can sign up for 2 or 3 5Ks every weekend if you wanted to, and they're just going to be just pretty mediocre to not very interesting at all. And I really like that there's some excitement that you're putting into it. And just by listening to you speak about your races, I can tell your passion in your voice. And I think that you've got something really, really good going. And I know you're a long ways away, but I'd be excited to run one of your races someday.
Thank you. I think because of the way that I built the event, with me kind of growing as the races have grown, I've really encouraged a community vibe. I've encouraged a lot of conversation. I've always put the runners first. I always say that everything I do for my race is to put the runners first and not sponsorship or money or, anything else. It's all for the runners. And I think over the years, people have seen that. And so I think the reason my brand has done so well and it continues to grow and thrive is because the runners really see that the race is for them and they know me. So, I mean, if I wouldn't put myself so vulnerably in front of people, they wouldn't feel that personal connection. And so I think that really differentiates me from the regular events, the oversaturation of the events that are out there. Most great races I know, the runners know who the RD is and have probably had a conversation with him or her at one point in time.
Oh, that's such an excellent point. And I think about that, like with the ultra community and some of the smaller local races and stuff. And I bet you experience this too, because Andy's a race director for a 5K in his area. But it's right. In the local area, like the really great races, you know who the race director is and you've talked to them. Yeah. So that's such a cool.
And you know why they do what they do. It's amazing how many times when I respond to an email, someone says, "Thank you for getting back to me so quickly." And sometimes I respond pretty quick. Sometimes it's days. And I'm like, "Oh, I felt bad. It's been days since I've, gotten back to you." And they'll say, "Thank you for responding so quickly." And I just wonder, who are these people talking to on a normal basis where days is a quick response, And so that's something I've always really valued is trying really hard to put the runners first.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Did you guys have anything else for Katie before she goes?
Good. Thank you, Katie.
So
thank you.
For everyone who wants to check out, we'll, of course, have show notes, but the website, again, is brokemans.com. You can also find them on Facebook under Brokemans Running and on Instagram under Brokemans Running. Both that's both their Instagram handle and also you can look for the hashtag too. So for other people who are posting from the races and stuff. And I have done, we were talking a bit about it on the, before we started recording, but I did do a race last year and I definitely hope to get out to some of them this year. And so who knows, you may inspire somebody else, to start something similar in their community and have, a movement, something similar. I think it's just absolutely wonderful what you're doing. So thank you so much, Katie. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And so, of course, on our way out, as always, we want to give a shout out to the Ozark Mountain Daredevils for the use of their music in our show for both the intro and outro. If you want to check out show notes or past episodes or some other good goodies, you can check out our website, and that's heartlandrunning.com. We mentioned the Facebook group. Come join us, have a chance to win some cool prizes, meet some other runners, great conversations. It's a lot of fun. If you have any feedback, you're welcome to give us a call or shoot us a text at 513-486-4636. And as always, please continue to share the show with your friends and keep it going. So until next week, I'm Crystal.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Chandler.
And run happy, everyone.
Woohoo!